Yeah, come on. You know what it is. Everybody say.
It's a double chair. It's a double chair. Who's there? Welcome, all my friends and everyone interested in this ancient text called the Bible, written thousands of years ago, and yet it's supposed to mean something to us today. I'm your host, the Dumb Christian, and this is...
Nic.
Yes, and we are going to explore a story that Jesus references when he's confronted with people who just want him to do...
Party tricks.
Yeah. So buckle up, the Bible's about to get real, and welcome to Dumb Christian. In Luke chapter 4, Jesus is confronted with people from his hometown where he grew up, and they're asking him to do some party tricks. They say, yeah, we hear what you're saying about God and the kingdom and who you are, but prove it. And there's this attitude in the Old Testament where when God promises somebody something, they respond typically with, I believe you, I want to believe you, that sounds great, but I also don't want to sound or look like an idiot. So how do I know that this is going to be true? And then God responds with, okay, let me demonstrate, let me prove it to you, to encourage you, to give you some assurance that this is actually going to happen. But the difference here is that the attitude isn't, I want to believe you, it's, I don't believe you, prove it to me, or show me some party tricks, like Nic said. Before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm from a small town. I work in a welding shop. Pretty lucky to work with a pretty good group of guys. Started getting back into the Bible. My friend Jonathan got us these really nice Bibles for Christmas as a gift, and he's been encouraging us to do a daily reading plan. I just really like reading it, spending my kind of evening, last thing I do before I go to bed.
Yeah, and I really enjoy like when we can get together and we do like just have random conversations about the Bible. That's really what made me think, hey, let's do one of these together.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And so Jesus responds to this request for party tricks with the kind of faith that you guys have. He kind of rebukes them a little bit. He says, this faith that you guys have, it's a lot like the faith that Israel had when there were a bunch of lepers in the land, but the only person that God healed was a Syrian. And a general, was it a general?
Yeah.
A general from Syria. And this just pisses the crowd off because that means they don't actually have faith in God and they're rejecting what he has for them. And I find that really interesting. So tell us a little bit about a guy named Naaman.
Well, I think it's important to know that, the Syrians were the enemies of Israel at that time. So when you see your enemy get healed, that's kind of, sort of a slap in the face. But anyway, so Naaman, he was a wealthy general. He pretty high status. His boss, a.k.a. the king of Syria, thought he was a pretty good dude. Kind of like that annoying employee that always has their employee of the month.
Right,
like they're
17
the only
months
one
in a row.
Yeah, they're the only one on the wall. But he had one problem, and he had leprosy. And leprosy at that time, it wasn't really understood as what it is today. And if you had it, nobody would approach you. Mm-hmm. So you had this guy who had all this status, he had all this money and power, but not even the lowliest of slaves would approach him. So that's kind of like the one thing that he doesn't really have is basically
real human connection.
Interaction, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he wants to get healed. He's, kind of complaining about it to his wife, I guess. And
all he ever does is bitch about this leprosy.
Yes, just holding him back.
Right.
But his wife's servant was an Israelite girl that the Syrians stole on a Syrian raid. Mm-hmm. And she said if only he knew of a man back in Samaria by the name of Elisha, and if he were there, he would be able to be healed.
Yeah.
So he goes up to his king and he says, hey, this slave girl, lowly person is
A
telling
foreigner,
me,
nonetheless.
yes,
An enemy foreigner.
An enemy
Yeah,
foreigner
okay.
is saying, hey, there's this guy that can make me better, and he can basically make my skin stop rotting off my body.
Yeah.
So the king says, okay, go. I will send a letter and for you to deliver to the king of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And he took a bunch of other stuff. He took a ridiculous amount of silver
And clothes.
Clothes. Yeah, I think it said 10 changes of clothes, which I don't know if that was enough for the journey because it was a 250-mile trip. You figure, I think I did a little research, how fast a chariot can move, because he took chariots. He didn't walk.
Mm-hmm.
He's wealthy.
Right.
And I think it said 20 to 30 miles per day is not unreasonable.
Okay.
But that's you got to stop, let the horses rest, go to a Circle K, get some snacks.
Potty breaks. Everyone has to try.
You got to fuel up the horses.
Right.
And then, so 20 to 30 miles a day, that's what? I'm bad at math. A little over 10 days. That's probably about 11 or 12 days.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Especially because it's mountainous terrain. It's very rocky. It's not they don't have paved roads.
Yeah, they're not going from Chicago to St. Louis.
Right.
Where it's all flat.
Yeah.
They're going up and down hills and mountains. So it probably took even longer than that.
So let's say maybe 2 weeks.
Sure.
Okay.
So he gets there and he knocks on Elisha's door. And
so first, I think, doesn't he go to the king of Israel?
Oh yeah. My bad.
And then I think he the letter from the king of Syria says, "Hey, king of Israel, heal my general."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then the king of Israel's like, "What? I don't know how to do that."
Yeah. What did he say? Something
What am I, God?
Yeah. So yeah, and I kind of forget.
So then I think Elisha hears that the king's upset.
Oh yes. Yep.
And then Naaman goes and knocks. The king sends him to Elisha.
Yes.
And Naaman knocks on Elisha's door.
He knocks on his door, but Elisha doesn't answer. He sends one of his servants to answer.
Yes.
I can't think of his name.
Shit, what's Batman's butler's name?
Alfred.
Alfred, answer the door.
Yes. So, at this point, he's already insulted.
Naaman
is insulted.
Yeah.
He took a huge leap of faith. He followed the directions of this, again, foreign slave girl.
A little girl. So in that culture, in the Near East back in that day, first of all, it's a woman. Women don't have a voice of reason. They're not well respected in that culture. Then it's a young woman. It's a child. And on top of that, it's a servant girl. What does she know? And on top of that, it's a foreigner. It's an enemy. It's an Israelite. So there's these layers of things that make this person really not someone that would typically be acknowledged or honored, what they say.
Yes.
And there's something inside Naaman that says, okay, I can't imagine what it was that convinced him, but there is something that he says, okay, I'm going to test this out.
Yeah. And maybe he was just, at his wit's end and was willing to try anything.
Yeah, does that sound like anybody? Does anybody know what that's like? You're I've got nothing left. I've got no other options, so I'll do anything. And maybe that's the first time we even think to seek out God. Okay.
Okay, where were we?
He's insulted
that
the servant answers the door.
Yeah, he's insulted because he went all this way and he's not even able to talk to the
Elisha.
man that's going to heal him.
That's supposed to heal him, yeah.
So basically, the servant said, hey, my master just said, go down to this river, take 7 baths. I'm on track here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So he says, take 7 baths and you'll be healed. And he's thinking, well, there's surely tons of rivers in Syria that I could have done this.
More clean rivers.
And also, are you saying I'm gross?
Right.
Like, which, I mean, you got
Where do you
got
get off?
leprosy.
Right. Probably a little bit gross.
Probably a little gross. And he was getting ready to leave. He was like, nope, this is...
Yeah. He was frustrated. I came all this way. This guy won't even meet me face to face.
Yes.
And I'm being told to dip in the river, take 7 baths. I've taken baths before. How is this going to help? I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then I believe it was Naaman's servants
Yes.
that said, hey, we helped you get all the way here.
It took us 2 weeks.
We're not leaving until you take a bath at least.
Right. Come on, man.
So he takes his 7 baths and he's cured of his leprosy.
Let's take a second to just kind of like consider the significance of Naaman's servant. So Naaman is a top dog.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big deal in Syria. And there's something about his servant that feels safe or comfortable calling out Naaman. Like, it's a servant telling his master, his boss, like, bro, we came all this way.
Yeah.
You came here for the purpose. I think the servant also says, if he would have told you to do anything else, you would do it. Why won't you just do this simple thing? And I want to come back to the servant a little bit later when we kind of come back around, because that's so significant that if his servant hadn't spoken up, I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the servant's shoes, because he could probably get in trouble. Naaman could probably like kill him or like punish him some way, right? Like,
Yeah, but if he killed him, how is he going to get all his stuff back? He's going to have to do it himself.
Right.
He's thinking, he's just like, he's at least not going to kill me till we get back.
right. Okay. Fair enough. But like, that just seems so weird that a servant would step out of line and say, hey, just go do it. And Naaman's like, all right. I just think that's such an interesting, he like took the servant had to take the courage and his own step of faith and be like, confront his master.
And I think that's something that like, that still kind of is true today. Like even at like the corporate level, you see your boss doing something that's like, hey man,
right.
like I think that would be good. That's a good lesson for people to understand. Like, hey, just because you're above me doesn't mean I can't speak out and say something to you.
What's right,
if
good,
something
and true.
is yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he dips 7 times, takes 7 baths.
And he has no more leprosy after that.
Yeah, he just comes out totally clean.
New skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes back
to Elisha.
Yes.
And he tries to offer him like some gifts. And
Well, he
stuff.
had all that gold or that silver with him.
Right.
And he says, he basically says, no, I don't want anything.
Mm-hmm. Elisha doesn't accept the gifts. And I think that's a good testimony for Elisha, because he's saying, I didn't do anything. I didn't heal your skin.
Yes.
Right? Like he's honoring and giving credit to the one who did. So this is interesting. Oh, this is just kind of coming to me now. Elisha, it's almost like Elisha is saying, this whole ordeal that happened to you was between you and God. I didn't have anything to do with it, because he didn't.
No.
His servant. Wow. Okay. So he's saying, in essence, your healing is just between you and God and your obedience to what he asked you to do.
Yeah. It's all coming together.
Yeah. Okay.
So he didn't accept the gifts, because basically he's like, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And then he basically just said, just worship Yahweh.
Yeah. Give credit, give glory to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to give a gift, give your worship
Mm-hmm.
to the one who did it. And then Naaman makes a really interesting declaration about this Yahweh God.
And that's, there's only one true God, and that is the God of Israel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how does Naaman respond when he kind of discovers this truth about the God of Israel?
Well, I think he believes it,
Yeah.
right, because he was healed. But he's also kind of like, yeah, but my boss doesn't believe in the same God.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have to basically help him into his temple.
Right.
And so Elisha says, basically take dirt with you
Mm-hmm.
to make bricks for an altar for you.
Your own altar made out of the land of Israel.
Yes.
So almost this idea of like you're taking a part of this land with you so that it's like you're worshiping from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And then Elisha says, you got your dirt, you got your clean skin.
Your new skin.
And then he says, go in peace. So I did a little bit of digging to find out like the Jewish attitude of what it means to tell someone to go in peace.
Okay.
And it actually kind of carries with it a come and go. So as you go, as you come and go, as you live your life, walk in the peace that exists from right relationship with God. So, because Naaman is concerned, he's like, Elisha, I know there's only one true God. I know it's the God of Israel, but I live in a land where they worship these other gods. Nobody there worships Yahweh. Everybody, everyone's, our gods are in marketing and advertising. They're on the billboards. They're everywhere. I can't escape the culture that I live in, and I'm worried of what that's going to mean when I think about who really is God, and I believe in him, but he's trying to like make sense of how to live in a culture that completely rejects Yahweh while he's the only one in that culture that believes. And Elisha says, as you live your life, as you come and go, do it in the peace of knowing you have right relationship with Yahweh. And I think, it's tough to know what's really going on in our world, and especially our culture right now, with what seems like fake news. I don't know what else to call it, but a lot of seemingly misleading ideas of what our culture actually believes, and who lives which way and what way, but I imagine that for a lot of people who believe in the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, the God that Jesus came to teach us about, I think it's probably very similar, where we're trying to understand, how do I believe in and worship a God that by and large is rejected by the majority of the people around me? And I think this story is a good encouragement that says, well, hey, if you have right relationship with God, come and go in the peace of that relationship. And can I jump in, or do you have any thoughts?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And the thing that I love about doing this episode with you is like the ways that we talk about the Bible and our faith and stuff has been such an encouragement to me, the way that like you have insight and that it's different than my insight, but we both can like go back and forth, and we can both kind of like challenge each other. It makes me think of Naaman's servant, because if Naaman didn't have that partner in his faith journey, because Naaman was on that faith journey from listening to a little girl to do the traveling, to go listen to Elisha's servant to, like, and then to bathe and then to come back, and all of these different steps. He's on this journey. If he didn't have that servant, he would not have made it to experience complete healing. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think about like you and I's relationship and our friendship and the way that we try to explore this thing together. And it's like, if we didn't have somebody there poking us and prodding us and being like, hey, come on, keep going. Like, it's so easy to just like say, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. And walk away.
Yep.
Because sometimes this thing does challenge us and ask us to do things that might seem a little nonsensical or unreasonable.
Unaccepted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, just unaccepted with, what am I trying to, it's unaccepted by everyone else around you.
Mm-hmm. And until we walk through those things, it's probably unaccepted by us too.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense. You telling me I just got to take 7 baths?
Okay.
Right? Like, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that.
That's a waste of time.
Oh, man. Okay.
Not saying it is a waste of time, but, you know,
That's what it feels
what
like.
it feels like.
So, you ever look at this? You ever like read through this or think about what it entails to believe in this and think that's just a waste of time? I mean, I've thought that and felt that, you know, like, but I think like a lot of people would kind of walk through and are like, I got to read my Bible today. I got to go to church. Like, those things, fine. They're nice, but they just feel like a waste of time. Until you have someone to walk through that with you and be like, no, there's something good here. If you just get through to the other side of it. And Jesus is using this story to illustrate the fact that the Israelites don't actually have the kind of faith that a Syrian had. And it infuriates them, and they're just enraged because they're like, who do you think you are, Jesus? You got no right to tell us that. But what he's doing is he's showing them, like, your faith is entirely based on party tricks, like what you get from God. And Jesus is saying that's not how God works. Yes, God wants to give us assurances that what we believe when we believe in him is right and good and true. But he's not some entertainer to just kind of fill our need for some gimmicks. But he wants us to be willing. Like, are we willing to walk through that journey, to listen to an enemy servant child who tells us to go 250 miles only to be greeted by a servant? And are we willing to walk into those things? Or are we willing to surround ourselves with people who are going to go on that journey with us and equip and encourage us when we reach those difficult scenarios where it's an arduous journey through rocky mountain terrain, or we have to go do something that seems ridiculous and unnecessary?
So I think that basically the Israelites wanting to see the party tricks, I think that is like, okay, so if God was like, all right, I'm going to knock that tree down, and it does, now are you going to believe in me?
Right. What's it going to take? So
it's just going to be an endless cycle of him having to prove that he's there. It's kind of a one-way relationship, because it's like, okay, well, I did that to prove that I am who I am. Now what?
Right. Because National Geographic will just come out with a series of TV shows to explain away how the tree fell down.
Wood borers.
Right. No, yeah, that's really interesting. And that's a really good point. It really comes down to whether or not we're willing to start with what we've been given and to take that trek and that journey, and don't go it alone. I have been your host, the Dumb Christian.
I'm Nick.
And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you guys.
See ya.
Guys, thank you so much for joining Nick and I on The Dumb Christian as we explore the story of Naaman and why Jesus felt it necessary to use him as a picture for these Israelites. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and ring that bell, and your phone will go silent for weeks. Share this with your friends, family. Give us a like, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys later. Love you guys.